It was so very hard for me to tell a 5-year-old his dad would never come home.
I don't regret that. The only thing that I regret is that he was killed too. I wish I killed more of those mother.
Stop. Stop.
I'm sorry for what happened to your uncle, but
just stop.
You life in prison.
I made my ruling.
I'm not just some gangbanger that you tried to betray me as.
You took it upon yourself to end my son's life. You changed our lives forever.
When notorious gang leaders are handed life sentences, the courtroom transforms into a stage of raw emotion, defiance, disbelief, or unexpected breakdowns. These reactions reveal the stark shift from a life of control to the crushing reality of justice. Each moment offers a gripping glimpse into the human side of criminals once feared by many.
Moving on to the first case of a gang murder of Leandro Guzman Feliz.
On the night of June 18, 2018, 5 members of a Dominican gang called the Trinitarios attacked and fatally stabbed a 15-year-old boy, Leandro Guzman Feliz, who later succumbed to his injuries. The 5 members included Yonaiki Martinez Estrella, Elvin Garcia, Jose Muniz, Manuel Rivera, and Antonio Santiago. Feliz was on his way to meet a friend when he noticed some cars following him. He tried to hide in a nearby shop, but was spotted by one of the gang members. The group dragged him out of the shop, and each member stabbed him one by one. Feliz pleaded with bystanders to call 911, but no one intervened. He tried to return to the shop, but he was turned away. Desperately, he began running towards a hospital, but collapsed on the way. 20 minutes later, Yonaiki Martinez Estrella was declared dead due to a fatal neck wound. All 5 gang members were charged with first-degree murder. During the trial, a 6th gang member, Alvarez, testified against them.
You may think that joining a gang is going to help you get money or protection, but in the end, it will destroy you.
The 5 members were convicted of murder. Yonaiki Martinez Estrella, who delivered the fatal blow to Feliz's neck, was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. Elvin Garcia, Jose Muniz, and Antonio Santiago received 25-year sentences, while Manuel Rivera was sentenced to 23 years to life. During the sentencing, none of them showed remorse and were seen flashing gang signs in court.
The next killing is of famous rapper Triplex. Jasse Onfroy, a popular rapper known as XXXTentacion, was killed and robbed by 4 men on June 18, 2018. The 4 men involved were Michael Boatwright, Trayvon Newsom, Dedrick Williams, and Robert Allen. On the day of his death, the rapper had withdrawn $50,000 to purchase a motorcycle and was visiting dealerships with his uncle, Leonard Kerr. After leaving one dealership, he was stopped by a black SUV. Three of the 4 men got out and demanded the money. Despite handing over the cash, Michael Boatwright fired at the rapper, killing him. The trio was convicted of the murder and sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. Boatwright received an additional life sentence, plus 30 years. Robert Allen, who testified against the other 3, was sentenced to 7 years in prison and 20 years of probation for second-degree murder. Now, we talk about a teenager killing a pregnant lady, Michael Thomas.
Don't do that to me!
In 2011, 16-year-old Michael Thomas was driving a stolen SUV with his friends Malik Merchant and Jimmy Scales when they stopped at a red light. At that moment, Thomas saw Rob Sharon, and he jumped out of the vehicle to rob her. Sharon resisted, refusing to give up her bag. Thomas then fired a shot, killing Sharon. At the time of her death, Sharon was 12 months pregnant. Thomas pleaded guilty to charges of first-degree reckless homicide in the deaths of both Sharon and her unborn child. During sentencing, Thomas attempted to approach his family, but police officers stopped him. His family, seated at the back, began to cause a disturbance, and Thomas was eventually removed from the courtroom.
Don't do that to me!
sentenced to 35 years in prison. Malik Merchant, who acted as a lookout, was sentenced to 17 years, while Jimmy Scales, the getaway driver, received 25 years. Firing in a Halloween party just to kill a rival member, this was done by Brandon Spencer. In 2012, Brandon Spencer killed a rival gang member at a Halloween party at the University of Southern California.
He was convicted of shooting a rival gang member at a 2012 Halloween party on the USC campus.
Spencer's shooting not only killed the rival gang member, but also injured 4 other students. Some students ran from the scene, while many hid. Spencer tried to escape with the crowd, but was eventually caught by the LAPD. He was charged with 4 counts of attempted murder. Spencer did his best to prove his innocence, but the judge was unsympathetic. He pleaded for mercy.
Sorry for what happened, Your Honor, but I need some life in prison. And I'm not a bad person, but I made mistakes. But I'm not just some gangbanger that she tried to betray me as.
Eventually, Brandon was convicted on all 4 charges and sentenced to 25 years in one case and 15 years in another, totaling 40 years in prison.
Minimum period of parole eligibility is 15 years plus 25 years of life in accordance with Penal Code Section 12022. 3D.
As the judge announced the decision, Spencer banged his head on the table but was stopped by the police officers. This time, it was not a rival member but an innocent body killed by a gang member, David Parga. In 2006, during a Halloween party attended by various Mexican gang members, 27-year-old Leland Washington, an African-American, joined the gathering. The gang members asked Washington to leave as they didn't welcome him. He initially left, but returned a few minutes later. David Parga, one of the gang members, took this as an act of disrespect and shot Washington. Washington was rushed to the hospital, but unfortunately did not survive. Parga chose to represent himself in court, where he was found guilty of second-degree murder. Washington's family spoke during the trial, saying his death had left a huge void in their lives.
There's days that the grief is so much that I just kind of muddle through the day. You have to understand who he was. He was such a great person, and the way that he died, he did not deserve that at all.
Halloween weekend will never be the same for us. My brother was murdered that weekend, and it's ironic that we're here today for the sentencing for the person that murdered Leland Cleophas Washington.
And I think if Mr. Parga had ever known him, he couldn't have been anything but a friend to him. He couldn't have found any other way but to make him a friend.
Parga addressed the court, expressing remorse for his actions.
There's nothing I could do to bring you guys' son back, brother back, but I am deeply sorry for what happened to him. To you specifically, I want to say sorry to what happened to your son. I know the pain you're feeling. My mom comes to see me, she cries because what's happening to me, and I could only imagine what you're going through. You lost your son.
Later, he was sentenced to 50 years to life in prison, with the judge labeling him a coward. Moving forward, we have Joseph Lancia, who is the president of Hell's Angels Rhode Island chapter. 30-year-old Joseph Lancia was the leader of the Hell's Angels Rhode Island chapter. Richard Starmino, a former member of the group, had an ongoing dispute with them. One day, while Starmino was delivering items in his truck, Lancia fired shots at him. Fortunately, no one was injured.
The bullet struck the passenger side of the vehicle. No one was injured. It should be noted that there were children in the area at that time, and there is a school across the street from the location of this shooting.
Later that day, the gang's headquarters were raided by police, and several members were arrested. Lancia was initially charged with attempted murder, but the charge was dropped as part of a plea deal between the parties. Lancia also pleaded no contest to felony assault and battery.
30-year-old Joseph Lancia changed his plea from not guilty to no contest.
He was sentenced to 5 years in prison and 10 years of probation.
A 5-year full sentence, all of which is to be served at the ACI.
Now, let's talk about the murder of Christopher Dean. Christopher Dean was a former drug dealer who decided to get clean after completing one final delivery to Xavier Gibson. However, Gibson, a gang member, had been told that Dean was working as a police informant. Gibson called Dean to his house for the deal, where he and 4 other gang members tortured and assaulted Dean for 2 to 4 hours, ultimately leading to his death. The gang members then disposed of Dean's body in the trunk of a car, along with the weapons used in the assault, and left the car near a station.
Police had just discovered a man's body in the trunk of a car.
Police later arrested all 5 suspects: Christopher Lockett, Xavier Gibson, Joshua Rooks, Jasper Green, and Quatis Clark. The gang members were found guilty of murder and other gang-related charges, and all were sentenced to life in prison. None of them showed any remorse for their actions. The last on the list, the teenage murderer Tariq Jackson. In 2015, a fight broke out between 2 Ypsilanti groups, during which 16-year-old Tariq Jackson pulled out a gun and opened fire, killing 20-year-old Keandre Duff. Jackson was put on trial and eventually convicted of second-degree murder. During the sentencing, Duff's mother addressed the court and forgave Tariq, acknowledging that he was a young boy with dreams.
Well, he forgives you. And I forgive you. I don't hate you. And then they sent me a picture of Mr. Jackson. And when I looked at him, I said, Lord Jesus, this is somebody's baby. This is a young man who had dreams to be more than what he became. And if anything, Father God, in the name of Jesus.
She then spoke to Tariq's mother, saying that her son would grow into a great man, and encouraged her to entrust him to the Lord.
Is Tariq's mother in here? Mom here. Your son is still going to be a great man. All he has to do is give it to the Lord.
The courtroom shared an emotional moment when the 2 mothers embraced. Tariq then addressed the court, expressing remorse for his actions and offering words of hope to his family.
First off, I just want to say sorry to the family of the victim. I wish the situation would have played out like that. I never thought that my choices and decisions would have affected so many people. No mother deserves to bury her son, and no mother deserves to see her son change. I was 16 at the time of the incident. I was young, angry, full of pride, caught in the streets, and in the middle of gangs and all type of other stuff. And I felt like, that was the best choice for me to make. But today, I don't think that was the best choice. But I take the full responsibility for my actions and I'm ready to face the consequences of the life that we was living, being in gangs and all that other stuff. It ain't worth 16 years or death, because eventually you be put in a situation and there's severe consequences that come with that.
He was sentenced to 17 to 40 years in prison.